All right. So thank you all for coming. So just a brief introduction. My name is Parul Sharma, and I am the principal instructional designer with Techni. We are a Florida-based company, and we design custom e-learning courses for organizations. So today, what I will be, I mean, like about me, I've been doing this for the past 18 years. I've been in the field of instructional design, and fortunately, I've been part of many great teams. I've had many great mentors who've kind of helped me throughout this journey, which is like very interesting. I really love instructional design. So, what prompted me to do this was that I know scenario development is something that we all want to focus on. We want to build nice scenarios because that's the way you can bring in your learners, and you can grab their attention and you can make them do things you wouldn't be able to do otherwise. So I felt that there are certain techniques that I have kind of learned over the past few years, and I just wanted to share some of them, the ones that I have utilized, time and time again, and they've really helped us, build these nice, robust scenarios. So I'll start with that. So building scenarios, an effective way to communicate. Now, basically, why do we want scenarios? Like I said, one that it helps us put the learner in the tight spot, so to speak. So that ways we can ask them and we can kind of elicit responses from them, and we can kind of help them understand like where the content is coming from, because we just don't want to be at the recall level and just push content at them. We want them to get engaged. Now we might say that yes, let's use interactions, click and reveal, or click and show and stuff like that. But ultimately it's like even clicking won't do the trick unless and until they feel something about the content. That's when they remember. So it's like all human beings, we have this limbic brain which is inside us. So whenever we are thrust in a situation which we can relate to, that's when we start remembering stuff. Before that, we will not. We might recall it for a couple of moments, and that's it. But as soon as you are out of that situation, out of that learning environment, we kind of forget that. So scenarios are a very good way of uh, you know uh, connecting with the emotional aspect of the learner so that they understand the content because they feel the content. So that's my take on why we should have scenarios. Yes, it makes life interesting, we can add a lot of stuff, but in addition, the main thing is get the learners to remember and have that information stick with them even after after the training has been completed. So that's my take on why we should try to use scenarios. So in this webinar, we're going to identify the types of scenarios. We're going to write a script for the scenarios, maybe like an example for each. We are going to, and we are going to list the common examples, like how can we represent these scenarios, and finally, how can you create assessment based questions on these scenarios. So that's like what we'll try to answer, and we will also have the Q&A session, and in between, in case if you have any questions, please feel free to that in the chat, and I'll try to get to them as and when we move along. And I want to keep this kind of interactive. So if you have a question, you can just type something like, I have a question, or, I need to ask you something. So I'll be constantly monitoring the chat. That ways, then I can unmute you and you can, talk. Because I feel, talking is sometimes better than typing. Typing becomes like too tedious at times. So just let me know in the chat window that you have a question. I can pause and we can take it from there. Because I want it to be interactive. Because scenarios, it's not like design. Like these are the design principles. That's follow them and then you go back and you use them. This is more like how do we want to do it, why have we done this, that kind of a thing. So just let me know. So starting with like the types of scenarios. So this is, I wouldn't call this an industry standard or the industry practice, but this is how kind of I group them in my work, in my there are two types. You can either use the overarching case studies or you can use the independent case studies. So we'll just get to each of them in a moment. So the basic difference is that when we are dealing with content, content can be any type. Like for example, if you can build content which is for your soft skill courses, which can be like leadership skills, or how to resolve conflict, or it can be something as technical as use the Salesforce software to do some XYZ stuff, or it can be a non-technical thing like how to use how to create a customer journey map, or how to create a data roadmap. So these kind of things, we as per our content, we have to define beforehand, even before we start scripting, what type of information do we want, how do we want to present this information to the learners. So there are two ways. First, we'll begin with the overarching case study. Now, as the name suggests, overarching case study is something that runs throughout our course. So it's not that if we have four modules, we will use the same case study to move the story forward. So basically, it acts like the backbone for the course or the module. Now it has well defined characters that move the story ahead. So it's like we start with something like this is something, and then we kind of build the characters, we add the characters. It's not just one person but a number of people, because the content can be such that it requires different perspectives. For example, the manager might be knowing something, and there might be an SME that is going to provide some additional technical information, so to speak. So that ways we have to build our characters in a way that we have the proper people in place to present that information to the learner when we reach that point in our module or in our topic or in our course. So it should have kind of well defined characters, and these are the people who are going to move the story ahead. So just imagine that you are writing a movie about your content. So how would that movie look like? It would have characters, yes. Yeah, you would kind of create, the content needs to be rewritten to fit into the narrative. So I'll show you later on in a couple of examples, we get to that, like how can we kind of convert any simple looking plain Jane content and kind of convert that into something that fits that character, fits that narrative that we're trying to portray. And the most important thing I would say that in whenever you're using case studies, we have to make the learner, this learner is the decision maker in the narrative. So yes, we have characters who will be using that content, who will be presenting the content to the learners. But how do you keep the learners engaged? You give them a position of authority in your case study. So any decision, whenever you are moving from, say, you are transitioning from one subtopic into another subtopic, something you presented some kind of information, you present a question which puts the learner in the position of authority. So they have to make a decision right there. That is the decision maker capability of the learner. This is what will keep them engaged, because they feel that, yes, I am in control. And the best thing would be that I don't know how often we can do that, but also provide kind of, it's like the branching mechanism. It's as simple as using branching, but using a case study. So you are asking the learners to create, answer a question, and then you can give some kind of remedial feedback and move on. Again, these you have to kind of try to define these case studies like in an active voice, because I don't know, in movies how would it sound if they show the two characters together and they're like, they did this together. No, I mean, they show them doing something, or they show them talking or doing something of that sort. Similarly, even in our e-learning scenarios, we don't have to have a passive voice. Yes, we can have a narrator which kind of moves, which kind of tells these, provides these bits and pieces of information, but most of it should happen as an interaction between our characters and not otherwise. Then another point which I cannot stress enough is that please do not make any decisions for the learner. For example, you did this and now this is happening. No, ask them a question. Whenever you are faced, this is a tip, whenever you are faced with something that is happening, a decision that is happening, convert that into a question. What would you do? You have reached this point where your mentor has provided XYZ information. Now you need to move ahead. What would you do? Just don't give four options, just give two. A, you would do this, or B, you would do this. One of them obviously will be the right choice. For the B part, for the wrong option, you can give a remedial feedback, or you can just give a feedback saying, if you do this, this is going to happen. So that way, see how you can kind of move your story ahead in scenes. You can create them as scenes, you can create them as modules, as topics, whichever way you want to structure your content. The main focus should always be on the learner making decisions at key points. So that is what will help engage your learners, because they know whatever they are making, whatever decision they are taking is going to kind of help them. And finally, you can also include integrated assessment questions that the learners need to answer correctly to move ahead. Again, like I said, you can ask them at the end of your scenario, or you can ask them right in the middle. It's totally up to you how you want to present your content and how difficult is your content. Because sometimes it's like soft skills, it's pretty much easier. But if it's like more technical content or something that is like even non-tech content, but still it's kind of the concepts are difficult, you can stream these little questions across your overarching landscape, so that ways you can move your story ahead as well. So that would be the overarching. Now the second type would be the independent. Now independent, I think most of us are used to this kind, in which we have the avatar based. I know all of us have these avatars from Captivate, or we have these people from Storyline, where we can just plug in the character illustrated or photo or stuff like that, and they're like they're telling the learners, hey, I'm going to help you do this, do that. So that is the independent, I call them the independent type of case studies. Why? Because the content does not need to be weaved into the narrative, and you do not need something that is running across the modules. You can just plug and play. Usually, this only needs one single mentor, coach, guide, or a character that moves the story ahead. The content doesn't need to be rewritten, only parts of it we need to rewrite. When we are introducing the mentor, that's when we kind of need to introduce. But then you kind of move ahead. It doesn't need to be active all the time. Yes, the guide and the avatar can make decisions for the learner. You can say, your mentor said that, this is important for you to do, so you can do that. The guide can pop in and pop out whenever needed. So we don't need to have these characters all the time on the screen. And you can have assessments that can be placed at the end and not necessarily within the narrative. So it's totally up to you, like how you want to do it. So this is kind of the distinction between them. So let's see like how do you actually write that stuff. So first, I mean, for me, how I begin is that whenever I have any kind of content, basically, and you have to write an overarching introduction, figure out what like you always have your client, right, for whom you are creating this case study. So do you want your company, the fictitious company, to match your company's profile, your client's profile, or are they not comfortable with that? So that ways that will give you a brief idea of like what type of profile should you build for this fictitious company that you will be using for your case study. Then we're going to go step by step also, I'll show you, but I just want to kind of lay a roadmap for you. Then we go into each one of them. Then you create the profile for your learner. Now, what role is the learner playing? So maybe this person is going to come in as a main decision maker, or if this person is coming in like your mentee or your newbie kind of thing. Then create the supporting characters profiles. Is a mentor helping them? How many additional characters do you need? So then you need to kind of build that team also. Now it's up to you whether you want to introduce them upfront, or as and when the story progresses and you need someone, and you need some character to portray some kind of, give some kind of information to the learner that the other characters cannot. You can start building in those people as well. Then you kind of script your first scene that introduces the characters and sets your storyline. And finally, you state the problem statement. Actually, why is this course needed? So this is where we actually show why is the course needed. So upfront, you can actually tell them like, this is what we can actually do. So let's see how this kind of works out. So create your company profile. So the content for this I have taken is from the Salesforce. I'll send a link to that as well. I think it's somewhere in the presentation as well. So this is about a customer journey map. So my content that I'm going to create a little case study about is about a customer journey map. So we want to explain to the learner why is the customer journey map important, and what all can you do with it, and how do you use it, or how do you build it and stuff like that, so that they can go back into their teams in their real life jobs and build a customer journey map for their actual organization. So I'm assuming that that is my premise, for my content. So first of all, I will have to kind of identify what is the profile of my company. So maybe I am working with the catering organization, some organization which is like, a big one, and it kind of, caters to millions of people all across the globe. So I want to mimic my fictitious organization to match this my client. And again, that basically depends upon what you want. So I want to mimic my fictitious organization like that. So what I will say is that I've used this name, Dracola Catering. And again, please be very careful with the names that you use. You can do a quick Google search, because we've had cases where we used a company name. The client had recommended a company name, and then they came back after a couple of weeks later saying that, oh no, we have to change the company name because this already exists. So we had to go back and we had to do everything all over again. So please be very careful when you are creating any fictitious name. Just check whether it actually exists or not, to avoid those kind of issues. So what I'm saying is that Dracola Catering is a company that specializes in catering. It provides services to individuals and businesses. They are spread nationwide and have a strength of over 2,000 employees. So this is how I introduce my company. I'm just doing the scripting part. In the next section, I will show you how we can convert this into a visual method, how we can visualize that also. So that way you get a complete, look and feel of this is how I script, and then pick up little bits and pieces and then kind of visualize them. So my storyboard kind of goes along the way. So this is my profile. Next, I create a profile for my learner. So what role is the learner playing? So I'm saying that this is my company profile. You've joined. Now see again, active voice, because we are directly talking to the learner. Therefore, it has to be active voice. You've joined as a senior customer management manager in the sales division of Dracola. Now, the best thing about scenarios is that basically you can just, create these fictitious roles. It's totally up to you. Senior customer engagement manager, senior customer manager, senior customer management manager. It's totally up to you. Obviously, your client has to be okay with that as well. But again, in the sales division of Dracola. So your division optimizes the customer experience to ensure customers have a smooth and seamless experience. So now here we are kind of setting the stage as to what is expected of you. So later, why? Because this person, this learner, is someone actually in the sales part of their organization, and they need to learn how to build customer journey maps. So we are kind of, relating to them. Another good way would be that if you have the learner profile from your client, so you can actually use that to build, to mold your character, to mold your main this person, the learner. So you can use their the actual titles, and you can actually use what they do in real life. So that way it'll kind of relate, you can relate to them more closely. That's just that those are just like little things you can do. So that's the profile. The third is create the supporting character profiles. Is the mentor helping them, other additional characters? So what I've said, that we've identified the customer profile, we've identified what the learner does. Now, your director, Cynthia, any name, heads the sales division. She sends out an invite to meet up with you to brainstorm a couple of ideas about retaining the existing clients and targeting new ones. Again, just remember that first, even before you start scripting, please go through the content which is available to you, because that way it will give you an idea of how you are supposed to build your case study. Like, if I don't know, like, what is the purpose of a customer journey map as an ID, I mean, obviously I don't need to know it, but whenever I get the content, I can just do a dry run through everything that is available, and that way I can kind of bring reality into my case study. Because yes, what is a customer journey map? It does help us retain existing clients, and it does help us target new ones. So that way it will give you an idea of what type of problem statements should you include in your case study, so that you can actually build something around that which ties very closely to what your learner is doing in real life. So that way they can relate to it further. So we are saying now we've introduced our character, who's the director, and her name is Cynthia, and she heads the sales division. So what is she doing? So automatically we've pulled the timeline, to the present moment. You've already joined, you're already doing your stuff. Now your director wants to talk to you. So the fourth one, there, sorry. So now you start scripting your first screen that introduces the characters and set the storyline. So we've already done a couple of things. So recently, Dracola is now this is the problem. Now this is the problem statement. Recently, Dracola is unable to retain its existing customers owing to dissatisfied. Also, they are unable to meet their current sales targets of acquiring new customers. As a result of all this, the sales team has seen a dip in its revenue generation. So this is the problem statement. Now, why are you needed? Because you have to do this. You have to help them with that. And another tip which I usually do is try to blow the problem statement, like exaggerate the problem statement as much as you can. It's because this is not reality, right? So you can say, their sales have plummeted over the past, quarter, and they have lost millions of dollars in revenue. Do anything that you want to that kind of, hits the learners like, oh my god, this is what happened. So it's totally up to you. I know sometimes clients don't want to include that kind of information. So you always have to obviously go back and ask them whether that is okay. But the best tip is to kind of exaggerate your, case study, because ultimately it is just a fictitious story that we are telling. So I think we have that leeway to kind of do that. So we are saying that, this is a very, subtle way of saying it. You can blow it up any way you want to, whichever way you want to write. So we're saying that they've lost customers, their revenue is gone, and stuff like that. So what do you do? So finally, you state the problem statement and what gap. So now we've stated that, and finally we say Cynthia has a quarterly meeting with the senior leadership. So why this hurry? Why this hurry? Why the need? Cynthia has a quarterly meeting with the senior leadership coming up in 2 months, where she wants to showcase what plans the sales team has created to mitigate these risks. So that is the problem. So this is where we are. This is our entire thing. So if you look at over here, I've kind of brought everything together. So you can just read through it quickly. Dracola Catering is a company. It does this. You joined as this. Your director has done this. Recently, Dracola is unable to do this. So this is our case study. So this is the base premise of our overarching case study. So that's how you can kind of use that. Uh, 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 this is like building the profile of your company. So now let's see, we continue. So that was just like the introduction part that we give to the customer. Now let's see the content part. Let's come to the content part, because this is here. Now we need to take the customer and we need to kind of fit this content. I've taken it from the salesforce.uk. I provided this link over here as well. So I'll provide this link so you can, this is where I picked up the content from. So for example, this content has been provided by SME, and they say that you have to build a case study and you have to build a course for our learners who have to learn how to build a customer journey roadmap. So what we're going to do is that you have to introduce a solution for the problem and place the learner at the center of it. So what we are saying is that you have to read through the content and then identify which is the best way you can present that content. We introduce a solution for the problem and place the learner at the center of it. What resources does the learner have available to help them resolve this problem, and start modifying the content to fit the narrative. So if I look at the content, it's like a customer journey map is a visual representation of the customer journey. It helps it helps you tell the story of a customer's experiences with your brand across all touch points, whether your customers interact with you via social media, email, live chat, or other channels. Mapping the customer journey out visually helps ensure no customer slips through the cracks. This process also helps B2B business leaders gain insight into common customer pain points, which in turn will allow them to better optimize and personalize the customer experience. So this is the content. Now we have to build our narrative around it. So what can we say? That Cynthia has been working with her team for the past couple of weeks, and they've decided that they need to identify where the customers interact with Dracola and then try to figure out where they are slipping up. So if you can see, I have kind of read this entire thing, pulled out one single point, the first and the second paragraph, the cyan and the fuchsia colors, and I've tried to kind of put this right here in a narrative which ties back to my case study and my company. So it's not necessary to directly translate whatever the SME has given you into something word to word, or kind of modify it a little bit, so that obviously there are no plagiarism issues. And those ones, yeah, that's another problem. But it's just like, how can I use this and fit it into my narrative? So I've used my character Cynthia, who's the mentor, and she's the one who's kind of bringing this information that this is the problem they're facing, Cynthia informs you that with your experience in customer management, you lead the customer journey map initiative for the customers of Dracola. So here we upfront we are telling them, we're telling the learners, this is what you need to do. Now, from going forward from here, it will be the learner who will be in charge of everything. Any peripheral material, any additional material that the learner needs, that either Cynthia will provide, or we can say, some other colleague of you brings in that, or maybe your team member recommends that. So that way, you see how we are kind of using different people to bring that content to the learner, but using the same story. Again, just remember, it's just like a script you are writing for a movie. So just think, how can you put that information? So now you need to tell them. Now I need to let them know what a customer journey map is. So we are saying per Cynthia. So again, I'm bringing in Cynthia. A customer journey map per Cynthia will help them look at and interact with Dracola from a customer's viewpoint. This journey map will visually represent the customer's journey as well as capture the experiences along the way. This is the same information, but it has been fit. It has been kind of created to fit the narrative of our learner who is part of this organization, where he needs to or she needs to build a customer journey map. So this is like, I know it's a very short example because yeah, this can take days and days to build. But do you have any questions after this? Then I'll move into the next independent case studies. So if you have any questions, you can unmute yourself and you can ask. Just feel free. So we don't have any questions. All right. So if you, anyways, if you have questions, please just let me know, and we can discuss that at the end of the uh, webinar as well. So that's not. So this is the overarching script content part. Now let's go back. Now let's. All right. Okay. I forgot this. I apologize. I forgot the last one. So this is like, this should help Dracola's senior management. Now this is the last paragraph. This the yellow part. This should help Dracola's senior management gain insights as to why and where they are losing their customers. Additionally, this should help Dracola identify the problem areas and mitigate them. They hope to retain current customers and gain new ones with the customer journey map in place. So we have kind of closed out our starting scene by reiterating the problem statement and identifying how this solution, this course that these learners are taking, will help do something, will help mitigate that particular issue that has been that this company has been facing. So that means it kind of closes your introduction scene, your introducing part. So that's how you can kind of take this content right here and kind of convert it into something like that. You can add as many as many details as you want to. That is totally up to you. So that's the overarching script content. So next we come to the independent introduction part. Again, it nearly has the same thing as your the case study, the overarching case study, but it's kind of much more shorter. So you create the profile for the learner. What role is the learner playing? You add some company details. Then you introduce the mentor who's going to help them. Start scripting your first screen that introduces the characters and set the storyline and state the problem statement. Same things, but we do it in a much more compact way, and we don't need to do it all the time. We just need to do it in bits and pieces whenever we feel that we need some kind of additional person to introduce this stuff, or it's not going the way we want it, it's not flowing properly. Introduce a character, introduce your mentor who can that's what I do sometimes as well. That, for example, if there is the transition between one topic and the other topic is kind of difficult, so how do you link that together? So that way you can basically you can bring in two characters, you can bring in the learner and you can bring in the mentor, and they can have this little conversation where the learner kind of is asking the questions that the next topic is going to answer, and you use the mentor as the mouthpiece for saying that, all right, you have this problem, let's see, this is the way we can do it. And then you smoothly transition into the next one. So that's how you can also use your, okay, it's not only about using them to present information, but to bridge any gaps between your transitions. Because yeah, that is one problem that I face at times, when you don't know how to transition from one part to another. Use characters, use a conversation, build up a conversation, and let that conversation take you from one's topic into another. So that ways you can kind of move ahead. So coming back to our Drocola, you joined. Now this is, you don't need to provide a lot of details over here in the independent scenarios, because anyways we're not using the company across, right? So you can simply say you joined as the senior customer management manager in the sales division of Drocola, a company that specializes in catering events. Your company optimizes the customer experience to ensure they have a smooth and seamless experience. I apologize for the repetitive word. Your director, Cynthia, heads the sales division. She's part of the senior leadership team that has decided. Now, see, now Cynthia is heading the sales division, but she's not presenting any information. She is part of the leadership team, and she has decided to create a customer journey map for the customers. This map represents where a Decola customer interacts with them and captures the experience every step of the way, or each step of the way. The leadership wants to use this customer journey map to enhance the customer experience and mitigate any issues about customers along their journey. So you see how we've picked up information that we detailed out in our overarching scenario, and we kind of trimmed it and we added to the independent introduction. And again, this does not need to flow together. This can be anywhere you want it to be across your content. So I just picked up that particular content right here. I just picked up this content because I didn't want to add any additional content, because that would be like too long. But just to give you a a feel of what actually transpires when you actually when you want to build something out like that. So you can just take it any way you want to. So that kind of independent. I know this is very simple. This is what most of us we usually do. We use avatars and we use things like that, and we present information in a conversational manner. So again, independent can also be conversational. It can be like what do you say, a monologue kind of a thing where the mentor is speaking to the learner. We can do that. But if you are using an overarching, that always needs to be a dialogue kind of a thing. So those are like little things that you can remember when you're kind of creating your scenarios. So any questions? All right. So I'll move on. I hope you're finding this useful. So if you have any questions, please just let me know. I can stop and we can discuss something that, or if at the end of it, if you have any scenarios that you are kind of you kind of stuck, or if you want some ideas, I've set aside some time for that as well. So if any of you have any things that you're kind of the writer's block, if you have that, we can discuss that as well. So the next part would be your visualization. Now we've already kind of, we know we've written our overarching scenario, and we have our characters in place, we have the scenarios in place, we have the problem statement, blah, blah, blah. What do we do? Next part is your visualization. I did cover some visualization techniques in one of the earlier webinars that I did. I think you can find that in the instructional designers group. I've posted it there as well. So over here, I will not go over like how to visualize, but what methods can we use to visualize that kind of content. So visualization, there are basically three ways in which we can do that. And I know most of us will be very aware of that. One would be the image-based visualizations that we use for case scenarios. One would be the video-based visualizations, and one would be the avatar-based visualizations. By the way, this nice lady, if any of you uses Microsoft PowerPoint 365, they have this huge cutout people that you can use in your PowerPoints also. So I got this nice lady from there. So these are the three ways in which you can actually use. So let's see our Drocola catering, how it is, where we are kind of introducing that. Like it serves individuals and businesses, and it has 2,000 employees, and introducing the company. So how we can do that using a video based what do you say, scenario introduction, because this is a very cool way I found that we can do that. So let me just play this. So this way it's kind of presenting this information. And yeah, that. So this is a video based introduction. And I don't know. So this can be, you can have little background music, and then you can have, the narrator saying stuff like, Ricola Catering is a company that specializes in catering, it serves to individuals and businesses and blah blah blah. So that ways you can basically use your regular techniques and kind of present, overlay this on your videos as well. And these videos, basically these are your, again, like I downloaded them from the Microsoft 365. They have these they have a huge number of videos which you can download and you can use. I think there is no we don't need to. I think this comes under the Creative Commons, so we shouldn't have any issues with using them as is. So that way you can use these videos, and that way it kind of looks good. Then the next way would be where we are using our image based, which I think is like one thing which we all do. So this way is again using this image, and then you say you are again, it depends upon whether you have narration or not, because that actually makes a lot of difference. So because if you have narration already in your script, and you have that voiceover capability, and your client is agreeing to pay for that, I know. So basically it becomes much more easier. But in case if there is no narration, then you have to figure out ways to kind of bring this information, but not too much information at one time. So that ways then you will have to use images in a different way, so that you can present the information to the learners but not overwhelm them. So I think that's where the ID part kind of comes in. But most of the times, if you are using scenario based case studies, I think you should always recommend that we have narration, because that pulls the story forward, because you can use the narrator also at times to move the story forward. So you can always recommend that to your clients. So this is like a very simple image based thing that you can use. Then again, the next one would be a video base which I've used. And another technique, a trick which I found useful, was that you can always provide, you can either introduce the characters as is, or you can kind of use these little circles to kind of present that person's point of view. Why I'm saying this, that because at times, if there are certain concepts for which you cannot find the same model posing in a particular way. So, for example, Cynthia is kind of angry, for example, and I cannot find this model in an angry pose, or in that setting which I, maybe she's angry in the office, or she's very happy in the office, and I cannot find this model where there is a backdrop of an office and she's smiling. So what do I do? One way is that I kind of just use her, and I use text saying that Cynthia is very happy. Or what I can do is I can create a little cutout like this using a simple technique, just place her in a circle and then Cynthia director, so that the learner knows who she is. And then when I bring it, I can use any background image, I can use any video to portray what she's trying to say. So that way it becomes so easy for me. So I am not tied to the poses this is that this model has. I'm not tied to whatever situations or background she is presented in. So I can just use a little cutout of this particular person and use it the way I want to, and to the way I want to present my content. So that way it gives me the flexibility. So this is another good way of using, again, see, this is a video. Maybe, yes, they are saying that the sales are not looking good this quarter. Now, Cynthia is nowhere in the picture. But since I've shown her image right here, the learner understand that, oh, yeah, Cynthia is part of it. And, she's saying that. So this is one way you can also kind of enhance your case studies when you do not have the available resources to do it. You can always use these little tricks, I would say. So another one, again, this is like an image, simple techniques. These are the various ways in which you can when you are introducing a customer journey map. So as you go further, this is like from there, as you go further, you say that the journey map consists of these five stages: awareness, consideration, decision, delivery, loyalty, and advocacy. So I've used a simple image, and I have used these shapes that are available in our Microsoft PowerPoint, and see the way it kind of looks. It looks so sleek and put together simply by using various color combinations and the way they come on the screen. And then ultimately I show the a customer and a smiling image. So basically in the learner's mind, we are pushing this thing that yes, this is where you need your customers to be. So again, using visual techniques, using your case studies, and using the content, you can actually kind of do this as well. Then using the avatars. This is the most common way. So maybe we have, how can we enhance our customer experience? Like there's this dialogue which is happening between people. How can we do this? And he says, like, and she's like, do we really need a map to figure this out? Kind of thing. So again, it depends upon how you want to present the content. You can present it in a way in which there is kind of clash of ideas. Maybe like one person in your team is saying that, this is not going to help us. So see, I mean, there is a lot of things that we as instructional designers can do to present the content. We can present it as a conversation, like I did earlier, as I showed you in the overarching scenario. We can present it like in a monologue form, in which we showed like we can use a mentor or a guide. We can use these avatars in which we can show this in a question and answer format manner. That is totally up to us. How would you, maybe you over here, this is Mark, for example, and this is you, for example, and she's saying that, or he's saying that, so how can we enhance a customer experience? And then you're like, this is the learner, obviously we tell them that you are the learner, or maybe, and we say that, we can do this. So you can mix and match all these techniques together to form a comprehensive scenario, a situation for a learner. Ultimately, the main point is that let the learners feel that they are part of this particular company, this fictitious company, and let them make the decisions for this company. That ways they will learn, and that ways they're going to relate to what they've done, and they'll remember that. So that would be, I think that would kind of summarize the different visualization. Again, as I said, I've talked about visualizations in one of my earlier webinars, like how to design them and what color combination and what tools you can use to do that stuff. So this one, I just wanted to give you like a brief, again, like introduction as to how you can actually, convert the content. That the main part is scripting, how you can convert your scripts into something visually appealing and something that matches the learner's expectations, and they understand, they get a look and feel of that. So when you look at this image, you feel that yes, this is a big catering company, and whoa, look, they're catering for that. Right? Then you move ahead and then you say, all right, this is the customer engagement manager, and this is. Oh, sorry. Can you hear me now? Yeah, I think I kind of muted myself. So, all right. Yeah, sorry. So, yeah, what I was saying that when I muted myself, that in addition to using your these avatars for scenarios and stuff, you can also use them for question and answers. And I think Storyline does provide us with a list of, it gives us like these very cool presentations which they've already created, these nice slides which you can use. So that's totally up to us, like what we want to do. All right. So coming to assessments, I was saying that assessments itself is a very, very huge topic. So I have not, gone deeper into these assessments, but I just want to give you a hang of what and how you can convert simple content into a scenario-based content. So you've already seen how we can write this simple content, how we can convert this content into the narrative of the case study. So now we'll see how we can create questions out of that as well. So assessment. So this was the scenario-based assessment. This was the content. I just brought that back from here, from the previous slides. So, for example, for a level one Bloom's recall, it's like, what is a customer journey map? So we say, it is a map that shows how to get from point A to point B, map that you customers use to navigate the company stores, map that company uses to target a potential customer, or map the company uses to visually map the customer interactions. So we know its answer is D. Now, something like this, if this is like very simple, it's just like a simple recall. Now, if you want to convert this into something different, into a scenario based question, how would we do that? So there are a couple of ways in which you can do it. One is that you can when you were scripting your content, right, when you were converting that content into your scenario, into your company scenario, you can basically use similar language and create a question out of that. Or you can always use like the additional characters. Remember I was saying that you can bring in additional characters. So we can say that over here I've used this colleague as an additional character who will be helping us to test the learners whether they've understood the concept of the customer journey map or not. So your colleague is part of the customer support division. So I can change the division name, right? Because it's a fictitious company, I control what I can do. So this person is part of the customer support division. They are seeing a dip in the customer satisfaction levels, follow-up calls. Their sales reps are unable to answer queries that customers have, that is leading to these results. Your colleague wants to know how they can help improve their customer experience by proactively identifying any risks or issues these customers have, so that their reps are able to answer quickly and intelligently. Which of the following would you recommend? So this is where we are asking the learner to make a decision. I know this is a very, very simple question. This is not a very complex one. It would border on, level 2 and level 3 Blooms, because here also we're kind of identifying, but again, we are not identifying it directly, but like a little bit, we are providing a little scenario. So this would be more like a level 2 Bloom's taxonomically. At least I think that it might be level 3, I don't know, but level 2, at least a level 2. So which of the following would you recommend? So A, start tracking the number of issues the rep is unable to answer and tie it to the performance matrix. Create a robust FAQ section and direct the customers to that at the end of the call. Create a CJM, that's a customer journey map, and identify the pain points the customers face proactively to find solutions to mitigate them. D, ask the customers to log their requests and let them know that someone will get back to them later. So this is how, like using whatever experience, whatever content we had given right here. So this is what we want them to do. We've already given them a hint. In fact, if you kind of remove this particular line, your colleague wants to know, even if you remove this line and you just say that, the reps are unable to answer queries that the customers have that is leading to the results, which of the following would you recommend? I think if we remove this particular line, this still would hold. So that way you can make it a little bit more complex, because over here we kind of giving them the answers directly, but just by removing your colleague wants to know how you can do this, blah blah blah. So if you remove that, then yes, it will be a little bit more difficult for the learners to know that, because everything, I think all the other options are also not incorrect, but C is the option that we want them to answer. So that ways we can kind of create assessments. So you can pick up any information, anything that you've already written. And another tip would be that we all usually we have to create two sets of questions. One is the ones that the knowledge checks, as we call it, that go right in between the modules, and then we have the final assessment at the end of everything. And then I know that's like a pain for me because I don't like creating questions that much. But what I do is that once when I create a question for my as a knowledge check in between the module or at the end of the module, I create a similar sister question for my final assessment. This There was a colleague of mine. He was the one who recommended this. He said that we had to create these scenario-based questions, and I had created like three or four of them. And I was like, now I have to create these questions again for the final assessment. So he said, why don't you actually create sister questions, companion questions, which are similar but a bit different? Because by the end of the final assessment, the learner anyway won't be able to remember what he or she has done earlier, but they'll be a little bit different, so they will have to apply the same principle, and you will be saved a lot of time and trouble in recreating stuff. So that is something I think that I've used since then, and that is what I usually do. So you can say this one is the customer support division. A company can have maybe the procurement division, or they can have the dispatch delivery division, where the customers can track their shipments, and then they are unable to track their shipments. So what would you do? So you see how you can practically take this and twist it up, and create a CGM that identifies the pain points that the customers face when they are tracking their shipments, and find solutions to mitigate them. Going further with this scenario, you can create another question which says that, so where do the customers face this problem? Yes, in the delivery phase of it, when they're unable to track, they cannot find where the shipment is. So that ways you can practically use your scenario and come up with multitude of questions, multitude of situations, multitude of you can include a multitude of characters, and then they can kind of you can use all that information for the to build a robust case study, and always put the learner at the center of everything. Let them make the decisions. Do not make decisions for them. Ask wherever you feel that there is something that this is a turning point in the case study or in the content. Let the learner make a decision at that point, and then move forward in that. And again, use any kind of visualization techniques, image based or video based or even avatar based, and you can kind of build a very cool looking case study which your learners would relate to, and they learn something from it. And once when they go back to their jobs or their regular jobs, they would say that, oh, Cynthia would have done this, or maybe my colleague would have done this. So I think that is what we really want them to take away once they've taken our courses, any scenario based course. I mean, that's what I think we should, that's what I try to do that. I try to strive in my case scenarios, but I think that would be the main aim. All right. So again, any questions? If you want, if there anything, just let me know, and I think I can unmute. I don't know whether I've, yeah. So yeah, you can just let me know if there is, if you have any questions. So we don't have any questions. Was it that boring? All right, then what I will be doing is that I will be, uh, thank you. So I'll be posting the recording of the webinar on the Instructional Designers group, and you can download the webinar. And I'll also post this presentation basically, so you can kind of see how I have worked through the content and kind of created the scenarios and how I've moved about everything. So that I think that would be helpful. I hope. I think all right. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. So I'll be sending a link for the recording, and yeah, Prasanna, I hope you found this useful. Thank you. So I'll be uploading the recording as soon as it's available, and then you can check the instructional designers group. And if you have any questions, always feel free to reach out using the group. And I think that's it. All right. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much for coming. All right. Thank you. Bye bye.